everybody. So I have some really exciting news. I actually have a baby nephew on the way. I'm so excited. He should be here anytime, so it's really exciting. So of course I did a special baby shower cake for the mother-to-be for the baby shower. So I'm going to show you how I made that gorgeous water lily. It's supposed to be like a water and the water lily kind of theme. So I'm going to show you how to make that really, really pretty water lily. I'm also going to give you the template that you're going to need to cut out the water lily. And I'm going to show you how to do the baby and how to do everything else on the cake. So let's get started.
So this is the template that you're going to use. You're going to need to print out both sides of this large flower on separate pieces of paper, cut them out, and then tape them together. You won't be able to print them onto one piece of paper because it's such a large flower. You actually have to do it in two sections. And I'm going to use white fondant because I want my water lily to be white. I'm just using a knife, or you can use an X-Acto blade, just to trim out the petals. So you're just following the template and just cutting around it. And you're going to want to do this with all of the flowers. I'm just using some thin foam mat and placing my petal on top of that and using a balling tool, rubbing it along the edge of my petal just to ruffle it slightly. And I'm just going to fold all the petals together like this, just so I can transfer it into my mixing bowl where I'm going to allow it to dry and harden. I let my flowers dry for about 2 weeks. And for the small little lilies that you see on the side of the cake, you can just use these templates. And it's just a smaller flower. And I'm just going to set these into smaller forming cups to dry as well. For the baby, I'm going to leave a link in the description below as to where you can find this baby mold, but I really, really like it. So I'm just using some skin tone fondant and pushing it into the mold. I'm going to stick that in my freezer for about 15 minutes just to harden up, and I'll pop out just like this. I'm going to allow that to dry for a couple days before I dust it, otherwise it's going to be really sticky. But I'm just using some brown coloring dust for its hair and some pink for its lips and cheeks. Using some green fondant, I'm going to cut out the lily pad. And I'm just using a large bowl for this. And using my veining tool, just pulling in different lines onto my lily pad, just creating a little bit extra texture. And I'm going to cut out this little kind of slit into my lily pad. And I'm just using some tissue paper just to kind of ruffle the edges. Again, just giving my lily pad a little bit of dimension. And this also has dried for a couple days before I pulled out the tissue. And just using some green dust just to accent some of those lines. Now, I didn't really like the look of my baby just all by itself, so I've decided to cover him up with some pretty leaves. So I'm using this leaf mold. Again, I'll put a link in the description where you can buy this. And I'm just going to create some really pretty leaves that I can wrap him in. And again, I always love dusting everything. I think it makes the world of the difference with what you're working with. So I'm just using some green dust just to accent some of the veins in my leaf. And using some water. And I'm just going to wrap him around. And I use 2 leaves to do this. For the center of my flowers, I just use this little flower cutter and I cut out all these different little pieces into it. So I just cut each petal into 3 different parts. And I'm using yellow, orange, and an off kind of orangey red for the different shades of my flower. And pinching them together for the smaller ones. That way gives it this kind of shape. And I'm cutting out an oval around my baby so that way I can lay these on top of that, so that way the baby has something to lay into, because I actually want the baby to basically be laying in the pollen in the flower. So I'm adding all these pieces around. Now this took a very long time to make all these separate parts, so you can also do just a more simple middle if you didn't want to spend as much time on the cake. Once my flowers have dried for about a week, I'm ready to assemble them, just using some water. And again, just dusting my centers, just using some orange and yellow dust to make it look like pollen. And sticking that right in the middle. Now for the border that I did around my cake, I'm just using this little kind of border tool that has this really kind of fancy edge on it. So I'm doing that on one side of the strip, and the other I'm just going to do just a straight piece. Now I've already covered my cake in fondant and tiered my cake. If you go to my channel, you'll find lots of other videos on how to tier cakes and how to cover cakes in fondant. But since this is a long video as it is, because there's so much detail in the decorations, I decided not to show that full process. So once you're ready to put your flour onto the cake, you can just use a little bit of water, and you just want to slide that around slightly without breaking the petals to make sure that the flour is stuck properly. And I'm going to start assembling my large flower. So I've got my 3 different sections, and I'm going to stick my baby in the middle. Now, my flower actually stayed like this for about 20 minutes, and then slowly the petals started kind of just drooping and breaking off, and I actually had to get rid of the large flower altogether and just keep the 2 inner flowers. And then I wrapped the whole flower itself in a strip of white fondant, creating a really nice strong base for it to hold them all together. I think that my flower didn't work out and it fell apart because, for one, my kitchen is in the basement, so it's very cold and humid. And also, I used fondant, adding Tylose powder opposed to regular gum paste. So I think if you made those few adjustments, it would work out well for you. But I would recommend maybe not doing the larger flower and just keeping it to the 2 smaller ones, just to be on the safe side. I also recommend doing the flowers a minimum of 2 weeks in advance. But even with the flowers kind of falling apart, I think it still looked beautiful.
So overall, it's a really, really pretty cake. Unfortunately, the flower didn't work out the way that I wanted it to, which of course I almost had a nervous breakdown when that happened. I'm sitting there ready to put the flower on top of the cake and it just all cracked. Of course, like half an hour before the baby shower. But I think it still all worked out really well, especially wrapping the base in the white. That actually held all the petals really together, which was really nice. So I hope that you guys really enjoyed the flower, and I will see you guys next week. Really? You're supposed to knock.
I thought you were on the phone.
No.
You're talking about baby shower.
I'm recording. Shut the door.
You still recording?
Yes.
Want to pass me a paper towel?
No.